Wise, more grim news tonight on the situation in many GTA long-term care homes. One home in Pickering has seen an 8-fold increase in deaths since last week. Lisa Shing spoke with the families of some residents there who say the province should have acted sooner.
Let's do the exercise again. Let's go.
For nearly a week, this has been daily life for Dwayne Simon and his mom, Telsita.
I have to bathe her, I have to look after her, feed her, etc. So I just made sure that I was wearing my mask, gloves, my eye protection. And when I was finished, I would, make sure I take everything off, bathe.
That's because the 90-year-old just tested positive for COVID-19 days after Simon took her out of her Orchard Villa long-term care home in Pickering when 4 residents had died. So far, Telsita has not exhibited any symptoms.
Every time I'm starting to feel like I'm getting a cough, I'm checking my temperature. Could I be getting something? Did I make a mistake?
Now, 31 residents at the home have died.
Thank God I was able to get her out and get time off to look after her. But my heart goes out to all the families.
One resident still inside and positive too is Sandy Brown's mom, Doreen. Brown is worried because she says many of the staff are infected, leaving few to care for the residents.
It's a desperate feeling to see that she cannot reach a cup. It's a desperate feeling to see that, she hasn't been able to change her clothes in several days.
Orchard Villa says it's working out the staffing challenges and confirms 98 residents and 24 staff have tested positive. The numbers are growing in other homes too. 7 more deaths have been reported at Seven Oaks, a Scarborough long-term care home that has seen one of the largest outbreaks in the province. The Premier today responding to the fact the virus continues to spread among the most vulnerable and the workers looking after them.
Changes throughout the whole system, not just long-term care. I'm the person that's going to be held accountable no matter which way this goes.
The union representing the workers has asked the Ontario Labour Relations Board to have the province take over managing some homes.
The government and the employers did nothing to ensure that those workers stayed healthy so they could stay on the front lines.
One of the homes named on the application, Altamont Care Community, says it has followed public health measures from the start, but some of the family says the homes could have gone beyond those measures to save more lives. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the number of cases in long-term care homes is troubling. Officials say when it comes to overall new cases, the numbers could be plateauing. That, of course, is leading to talk about when social distancing restrictions might be lifted, even partially. Premier Ford says he'll be looking for Ontario to hit what he calls benchmarks, but wouldn't explain what those are. So our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley gathered some expert opinions on what those benchmarks should be.
It's the question almost everyone is asking. When will Ontario start easing its emergency measures? No one in authority has a precise answer, but experts say that 3 key things have to happen first. Number 1, transmission of the virus must be slowed right down.
You definitely want to see that the outbreak is well on its way to reducing down to a certain level where it's basically low level and under control.
While that means the daily number of new infections must drop, it does not mean it has to hit 0.
We can't wait till we get no cases for 2 weeks. We may be in our current state for a very long time if we do that.
The number 2 factor for loosening restrictions, a far greater ability to test for COVID-19.
As the outbreak comes to a grinding halt, paradoxically, we're going to actually start to increase the amount of testing we do.
That's because the province must be able to spot any spike in new infections quickly. The ideal system, what's called surveillance, widespread random testing of the general public.
I will be very pleased if when the economy opens back up and people go shopping at Walmart, they find someone outside Walmart who says, would you mind if we took a swab from you or a saliva sample from you?
Number 3, outbreaks in institutions, especially long-term care, must be contained.
Right now, our testing is very much focused in the long-term care and retirement home and probably other congregate settings.
When could this all happen? While officials won't commit to a date, here's one expert's prediction.
And I suspect that we'll be able to do some sort of relaxation of the restrictions in mid-May.
Whenever things do start to change, it looks like the first workplaces that reopen will be outdoors.
Certain areas that you don't have to worry about working side by side on a line that you can't practice social distancing, maybe outdoor activities.
Premier Doug Ford says his framework for restarting the economy will be released in a few days. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
City of Toronto officials updating the COVID-19 outbreak today. Medical Officer of Health Eileen DeVilla says it appears Toronto's cases of the disease are now in their peak period.
The reality is that we will only know when we have hit our peak for COVID-19 cases after the peak has passed. This is because we need to see the number of new cases leveling and then going down to know that we have experienced this milestone and we can see exactly what has occurred.
281 people are currently hospitalized because of COVID-19, with more than 100 in intensive care. 190 people in the city have died from the disease. DeVilla says the 3,820 cases in Toronto are lower than initially forecasted because of strong public health measures and city residents who are taking those measures seriously. But she adds, we need to continue to practice physical distancing for the time being. To that end, Mayor Tory says he will base his decision on when the city can reopen on the advice of public health officials. A handful of old TTC buses will now have a new purpose. The Transit Commission and Toronto Paramedic Services are partnering up to transform the decommissioned buses into emergency transport vehicles. As Kelda Yoon tells us, it is to help deal with potential surge capacity during the pandemic.
From the outside, it looks like your everyday TTC bus, but when you step inside, it's something else entirely.
So as you can see, they've removed all the seats from inside the vehicle
and made room for stretchers.
Each of the buses is designed to handle 3 stretcher patients and between 8 to 10 seated patients.
Those patients would take a seat at the back, the only section of the bus that hasn't been transformed.
And then we also added electrical systems or inverters so we could support the use of ventilators and, if needed, cardiac monitors.
There's also room for 3 paramedics. A TTC driver would be behind the wheel. This bus was repurposed in a week, a joint effort between TTC and Toronto Paramedic Services.
So there was a need that was thought of because of COVID-19 and the possibility of the need to move large quantities of patients from one facility to another.
Such as hospitals and nursing homes. Wyonzik says the vehicle could also be used as a staging or testing area for those facilities. Right now, though, there's no need for these vehicles, and that's a good thing.
We've seen what other cities, countries, and towns have experienced. We're looking to get ahead of the curve if needed. We're hoping not to need these, but as part of the city's contingency plan as a just-in-case tool.
3 of these buses have been retrofitted and are ready to hit the road at any time. Work on 2 more is underway, and that's expected to be finished by the end of the week. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, at some Toronto high-rises, residents say broken elevators are a big inconvenience and raising safety concerns amid the pandemic. Lauren Pelly has that story.
This is what I normally have to go through when the elevators are broken.
We asked Catherine Anthony to film her trip up to the 45th floor. She says her downtown high-rise usually has at least 1 broken elevator. With only 3 people allowed each ride during the pandemic, there's often long waits.
So now that I've taken the elevator up as far as I can in the low-rise elevators, I now have to start the stair climb.
Anthony worries this trip is extra tough for residents with children or pets.
People do what they can unless they want to wait for maybe 5 or 6 elevators to go by.
She says residents faced those issues in the ICE condo complex long before the pandemic. Property managers for the York Street buildings haven't returned our request for comment. Hundreds of people live in both the ICE condos, and the tallest one goes all the way up 67 floors. High-rise dwellers elsewhere are also worried about broken elevators during a health crisis. Online, Liberty Villagers share similar concerns.
It causes a lot of stress.
This resident says her building is sometimes down to 1 elevator for 30 floors.
There are some residents here who are older who might, need to take the elevator. Some who, have older pets that they can't carry down.
Repair issues, as well as cleaning and building contagion concerns have been a major concern that people have brought to us.
So we brought the elevator concerns to the mayor.
I will see if I can't reach out to the companies that are involved in this and see if there's anything we can do to help them, but I suspect it's a supply and demand problem.
Anthony just wants accountability.
On a good day, you can get in and out pretty quickly, but the issue is that there's rarely a good day.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, a woman is dead after being pulled from a house fire in Etobicoke tonight. The two-alarm fire broke out in the basement of a home near Rathburn in the East Mall.
Crews made quick entry into the basement. They found a well-involved basement fire. During their search, they found a female, removed her to the outside. She was vital signs absent.
Ambulances rushed that woman to hospital, but she died of her injuries. Meanwhile, crews were able to knock the fire down quickly, but there is significant damage to the house. Well, here's a look at Niagara Falls tonight and how the people there are honoring the victims of that mass shooting in Nova Scotia. The falls on both sides of the border lit up in that province's colors, blue and white. The RCMP are now saying there are 22 victims in this weekend's rampage, all adults except for one 17-year-old. And there was confirmation today that a couple from Durham region were among the victims. This was the scene in Oshawa last night as first responders paid tribute to the family of Don Madsen and Frank Goulingen. Madsen worked for decades at the Hillsdale Terraces long-term care home. Durham Region Chair John Henry spoke about their connection to the community and the impact of the shootings.
As Dawn was an employee of the region of Durham. She just retired in 2019, moved down to Nova Scotia, but she still has family and friends here in Durham region. This is a senseless, violent, tragic event, and somehow I hope we find out the cause, but that's not going to solve the problem of the feeling. This is just something that will go on to affect people for a long time.
CBC News spoke with Madsen's former boss at Hillsdale Terraces. She says Madsen worked in the food services department, retiring just last May with the plan to return to Nova Scotia.
Dawn is one of those employees that if you could duplicate or replicate her, I would think that every organization probably need about 10 of those. She had family there, so she was going down all the time and thinking her husband retired before her and they had bought her a place, and while she was still working, they were fixing that up to be their retirement, and she had a retirement plan to return to Nova Scotia.
The flags are lowered at the Durham Region headquarters to honor the victims. An online vigil for all of the victims will be held this Friday evening on Facebook. Well, still ahead in our newscast.
Try not to be too alarmed. It's not only for our safety, it's for everybody's safety.
A behind-the-scenes look at what paramedics in Peel Region are doing to keep themselves safe during this pandemic. Plus,
oh, such a windy day today, plus seeing some of the lake effect flurries pushing through, a little bit of sun at times, and cool temperatures. I'm meteorologist Colette Kennedy. Does it look better tomorrow? I'm here to tell you it does. I'll give you all the details on some sunshine and at least a slightly milder day coming up after the break.
I just don't know what to make of the weather today. 1 minute it was hailing, as you could see by this video taken by our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley. Next, it was a sunny day. And there were all those wind warnings. So what's going on? Who better to ask than our meteorologist, Colette Kennedy?
Yeah, Mike, we've had just about everything to deal with, right? Today, much of the day with these incredible winds. And to add insult to injury, such a cool temperature in the afternoon. It was just struggling there around 1 degree, but not to rub things in, I just want to show you where our average high would be at this time of year, about 13 degrees, a low around 2. And if we look at today, it doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, because I know you're like, it didn't feel like 7. That was in the morning hours as the temperature rose overnight, and our low, we're actually reaching it here this hour. So as the temperature's falling off towards the negatives, that's when we're going to reach the low for this 24-hour period. So that is still to come. But our temperatures, the progression was really interesting. So they were spiking out ahead of that front. And then by 8 a.m., as the front goes through, you can see the temperatures falling off, certainly at freezing at Barrie. And then even into the afternoon, they tried to come up to 2 degrees, back down to 1 for the city. And we just kind of hovered there around 2 to 3 degrees. So pretty miserable then when you added the winds on top of that. Well, the gusts, if we look at now, this is the forecast of what's happening with these. They let up a little bit overnight, especially if you look at those contours here, these dark purples. Those are some of the strongest winds. So they begin to ease. Even into Wednesday, it's going to be a breezy day, but today was a windy day. Breezy, a little bit better, and by the afternoon, certainly some of those gusts will be backing down under 40 kilometers an hour. But still, that Arctic air across the lake, that drove the snow, some of the sleet that we were seeing even. And then as we get into what's happening for Wednesday, because those winds are a little bit lighter, we actually see a nicer pattern. So we will have some sunshine. Temperature will be a little bit better as well. But then the next system knocking on the door for southwestern Ontario. So the cloud cover will come in from Windsor towards London into the latter part of the day. You'll then start to see, like into the evening, a bit of precipitation beginning to develop, likely a bit of a mix at first. And as that scoots eastward, we'll see some of the cloud cover coming in as we go Wednesday night into Thursday, but likely a few showers or flurries coming through the GTA as well, because it's just such a close call. So I've at least put extra cloud cover into the forecast, certainly for Thursday. Tonight, though, feeling like -9, the temperature -3. Tomorrow, 6 degrees, and those clouds starting to thicken up for southwestern Ontario. For the GTA, our lows tonight -2 to -3, just some isolated flurries left. Highs, hey, better than today, 5, 6 degrees. I know we'll take it. We don't have a choice, but it's improvement. Thursday, 6 as well, but the cloud cover and some of those flurries, it really might get better. On Friday, 10 degrees with some sunshine coming our way.
All right, thanks, Colette.
The weather update is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. Take advantage of special offers now. It's hard to stop a Trane.
Well, just by showing up to work, many first responders put themselves at a high risk for infection. But paramedics in Peel Region have found an innovative way to better protect themselves when responding to COVID-19 calls. Our Ali Chasson got a closer look at the new high-risk response team, the first in Ontario.
And then in your ear.
We have to screen and sanitize ourselves before entering the ambulance bay to have a look at one of Peel Region's 4 new HRT units.
HRT is HRRT, is the high-risk response team, and it is a specialized response team of paramedics that are responding to high-risk calls in the community, high risk in that there's a risk of transmission of COVID.
The fleet looks the same on the outside, but inside, these ambulances are kitted out with new state-of-the-art equipment that allows advanced care paramedics to perform life-saving procedures on COVID patients while preventing them from catching it themselves.
This is an example of enhanced respiratory protective equipment. And what it is it's called a powered air purifying respirator. And so there's a motor unit that's worn around the belt. It draws air in, it goes through a high efficiency HEPA filter. The air is sent through the hose into a headpiece. The headpiece goes over and fully encapsulates the paramedic's face. There's a constant flow of positive pressure purified air that's going around the person's head.
Protecting the paramedic while, for example, intubating someone.
You would insert a breathing tube into a person's windpipe or trachea to support their respiratory function. That's a very high-risk procedure for generating these small aerosols, but it's also a potentially life-saving procedure.
This stands out. I've never seen one of these before. Can you tell me what this is?
It's a machine that automates CPR. So ordinarily we would have a rescuer, whether it's a paramedic or a firefighter, performing manual chest compressions, but that is a little bit tricky in a COVID era. So what this does is it uses a band that goes around the patient's chest. The band tightens, it sizes the patient's chest and tightens to estimate the diameter of the chest, and then it is going to compress the chest automated for us in an automated fashion so that our 2 paramedics can focus on other aspects of patient care and that this task is completely automated.
Peel Region's HURT units have only been a thing since yesterday, and by 6 a.m. this morning, they were already responding to calls for COVID-positive patients.
If I'm a patient and I see all of this coming at me, it can be pretty intimidating, maybe scary. So what's the advisory that we put out there for people who may face this?
If you call 911, our dispatchers are going to be asking a series of screening questions. It's really important to answer these questions honestly. Try not to be too alarmed. We recognize that, it's an emergency. By definition, it is stressful, and this doesn't help. But it's not only for our safety, it's for everybody's safety.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Brampton.
This is the scene outside a home on Brunswick Avenue every night at 7:30. The family plays a song for the neighborhood using brass instruments to salute healthcare workers. It's a little chilly tonight, but they usually draw quite a crowd. Responsibly distanced, of course. You can watch all of the videos on Twitter at Horn on the Cob. Here's more of tonight's performance as we head to break. In this time of uncertainty, Nurse Flutter and Doc Hopper are helping to fight COVID-19 by administering daily doses of laughter. The therapeutic clowns, otherwise known as Suzette Arujo and Phil Cool, work at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. They've created some musical performances for patients and staff, including the hospital's screeners.
Screener, you know you are a screener. You can't put your hands in your mouth, no, no.
According to their colleagues, the clowns are lifting spirits and bringing joy. They even found a way to get their red noses on the outside of their protective gear. The duo are planning a YouTube show called Clown TV to ensure they can keep a safe distance from patients and continue to keep them entertained. So thank you for everything you're doing, Nurse Flutter and Doc Hopper. If you'd like to share a story about your frontline hero, send us a selfie-style video explaining why they are a hero to you. Tag us on Twitter or Instagram at CBC Toronto. Send us a message on Facebook or email us at torontotips@cbc.ca. I'm pretty sure I went to high school with Suzette. It's just hard to tell with that mask and the clown nose. A reminder, tomorrow is National Canadian Film Day. Since no one can actually get out to go to a free screening, there are plenty of free screenings coming to you. CBC Gem has a series of great movies queued up for you to discover. You can also Google National Film Day to see what's playing on other streaming services. I'll see you again tomorrow night at 11. Good night.